Story 1. I was using the laundromat at my university's dormitory, and one of my tops fell halfway out, preventing the door from sealing properly, even though it remained locked. Long story short, the place was flooded. I tried to stop the machine, but I couldn't. I attempted to call the number on the machine, but no one answered. I tried to clean up, but I didn't have anything to do it with. When the machine finished, I gathered my clothes and quickly left. Story 2. I once took a children's playset after answering an ad for a free wooden playhouse and swing set. I got the street right but must have mixed up the house numbers. I pulled up to what I thought was the right house, knocked on the door, and when no one answered, I disassembled the playground and loaded it into my trailer. Several hours later, I received an email from the person who posted the ad, expressing frustration that I never showed up. Story 3. I tried to unclog a toilet at a party and made it worse. I blamed it on a guy who left before me. Everyone still calls him Storm Steve. Sorry, Steve. Story 4. I was blamed for pushing a man down the stairs after he tried to confront me. Several witnesses supported my account, stating that he slipped. I ended up in a wheelchair for a while. I pushed him. Story 5. I turned off the call logger over the Christmas period when the company was closed. A long time ago, in a corporate setting far away, the company traditionally closed for Christmas, typically for 2 weeks, fully paid. A new sales director joined the company, emphasizing the importance of call statistics and logging. He had an expensive call logger installed. My business unit had the only network server in the company with hard disks large enough to accommodate the call logger and its database. To keep costs down, the sales director had the logger installed on my server while I was on holiday, without informing me. Although I discovered it, I said nothing. During a management meeting, he announced that he would monitor the call statistics over the Christmas break to determine if we should remain open instead of closing the following year. The management team exchanged nervous glances. On the evening we were shutting down the office, powering off printers, terminals, and terminal servers. My final task was to shut down my file server, including the call logger. Upon returning to work, I found no call data. The company remained closed the following year and opted for a dedicated server afterward. Over 200 people enjoyed a 2-week break because of me. Story 6. My little brother, who was 17 and involved in selling drugs, begged me to sell some jewelry at a pawn shop for him to pay off a traffic ticket. I disliked this idea and asked where he got the jewelry. He said it was from a drug deal with someone in a city an hour away. I agreed in hopes that he could get his license back and find a real job. The jewelry turned out to belong to my grandmother. He had taken it when he was helping my mom clean out her apartment shortly after she passed away. I was so disgusted and tried to buy it back, but it was too late. I'll never tell my mother, but I made sure he understood how disappointed I was in him. Story 7. I had an embarrassing incident on the playground in 3rd grade because the substitute teacher wouldn't let me back inside. When we finally returned to the classroom, I rushed to the bathroom, ruined my underwear, and desperately tried to clean my shorts, but I was unsuccessful. They were black, so the stains were not visible. We had to line up on the second square from the wall to go back into class, and the person behind me loudly remarked that someone smelled bad. I jokingly blamed the class outcast, and everyone went along with it. He was teased for the rest of the year, but it was actually me. I apologize, Robert. Story 8. My dog got sprayed by a skunk when I was in middle school, and he rubbed against my backpack while running in, freaking out. I tried to avoid bringing the backpack to school, but I had so much stuff that I had no choice, and my mom insisted I take it. The lockers at school were arranged in bays, so they were backed up against each other. I shoved the backpack in my locker when it was empty, and it attracted a lot of attention from students and faculty because of the terrible smell. The smell was blamed on 2 popular girls whose locker was adjacent to mine, as their bay had most of the scent for some reason. When I pulled my backpack out later, it hardly smelled at all. It was almost as if the skunk odor had drifted from my bag to their locker. I never got caught for it. Story 9. In 3rd grade, I said something to a student who was in trouble that made him react even more aggressively. I think he got expelled, and I don't remember exactly what I said. I'm sorry, Troy. Story 10. When I was in fifth grade, my friend brought a powerful magnet to school. We discovered that it interfered with the monitors when we quickly passed the magnet over them. We did this to the entire computer lab, unaware that it damaged the monitors, and we never discussed it again after that. Story 11. I pushed the school bully off the top of the big slide. He broke his arm, and no one believed him when he accused me because I was 5 years younger, small, and a good kid. I have never regretted it. Story 12. A lot of people clog toilets. When I was 4 years old, I set fire to some weeds near my grandparents' house and almost burned down the whole farm. The firefighters arrived and extinguished the blaze, although it took them a while to do so. They put it out, and absolutely no one asked me anything because I was only 4. I wonder if my grandparents knew to some extent. Probably. Story 13. Leaving Kathy was a significant moment for me. She was a good person, kind, generous, and caring. At that time, I was self-absorbed and regret my actions every single day. I wish I could tell her how sorry I am. I am grateful for the responses I've received regarding this. Thank you to everyone who reached out. In summary, I am very happy in my current relationship, but Kathy will always be my greatest mistake and regret. She did not deserve the way I treated her when we broke up. To one commenter, it's likely she does not want to see me again, and I understand if she wants to be left alone. Honestly, I wouldn't blame her. To Kathy, I cannot fully express how sorry I am for my actions. I cannot imagine how you felt that day, and I realized too late that no one, especially you, should ever be treated that way. I wish you all the happiness in the world. Story 14. I was driving a short bus to take some students on a field trip. I'm a teacher, not a bus driver, but generally a very good driver, and I have no idea what I was thinking. To be fair, it was a newer bus and larger than the older ones. Before I picked up the students, I pulled into the parking lot, thought I could get through, and when I realized it was a tighter squeeze than I expected, instead of backing out and going the long way around, I decided to try anyway. I scraped against someone's car. This was at my school, a very small school with about 25 staff members. The front of the school has large windows, and the office staff faces them all day. Somehow, no one saw what happened. I backed out, went on with my day, never said a thing, and never heard anyone mention damage to their car. Story 15. I had a troubled childhood and drank a lot in high school and the first 3 years of college. I am no longer that person. During my senior year of high school, I went to a concert with friends and got so messed up that I was kicked out. My friends stayed, and I guess my plan was to sleep it off in the car, but I didn't do that. I have vague memories of running around the neighborhood, knocking on people's doors, and I remember one very sweet family who answered the door, sat me in their living room, and gave me water while I sobbed. They called the police to deal with me. I'm lucky this was not in recent times when people are not always so nice. The officer called my parents, and they picked me up. To this day, I am still mortified about my behavior affecting this family late at night. I pray only good things for that family every day. Story 16. When I was in 5th grade, I thought it would be cool to light a single match and casually walk away. Instead of a small flame, I accidentally scorched the entire front yard of a massive apartment block. When I returned the next day, every blade of grass was charred black, with the added surprise of a completely barbecued car sitting right in the middle. Story 17. I once hit reply all on a company-wide email to complain about the company. I spent the next 2 hours updating my resume and sweating through my soul. Story 18. Every relationship before therapy made me realize that if everyone seems off, I should examine my own behavior. Story 19. We had intimate relations and fell asleep immediately afterward. I got up in the middle of the night and noticed a brown stain on the sheets. After that, I got dressed, left quietly, and have not contacted him since. Story 20. I was overbearing with someone who could have potentially been the love of my life. I have never been like that before. It was a complex result of not respecting some of my own boundaries and moving too fast after a recent breakup. I should have told her how I felt, but I also wasn't quite ready early on. All of this could have been avoided. Story 21. I experienced a severe domino effect due to a sexual health toy. While undergoing chemotherapy, I had some fun with it, which unfortunately led to an Escherichia coli infection. This infection resulted in intense pain for 3 weeks, during which I had blood instead of stool daily. Ultimately, it led to a hospitalization of nearly 2 months. I faced the worst pain I have ever endured for 7 days without sleep, followed by an overprescription of painkillers that caused me to develop psychosis. This all had numerous additional consequences. At one point, I weighed 47 kilograms at a height of 180 centimeters. It likely explains why my pain center is malfunctioning, causing me to experience severe pain. It might also clarify why I suffer from irritable bowel syndrome and various gastrointestinal issues. The chemotherapy, which was effective, ended up turning my life into a living nightmare and extended my treatment duration to 12 months before I was considered healthy again. The psychological impact still affects me today, especially since I was struggling prior to this incident. It may also have contributed to my father's suicide, which occurred 6 months after my diagnosis. All of this happened due to a poor decision and lack of caution. Story 22. I was 14 at a baby shower when a little girl, probably around 5, and her mom sat next to me. At that time, filters on Snapchat were popular, and kids loved using them. We started to play with the filters, and I tried a bald filter on myself. The girl laughed, so I applied it to her as well. The mom noticed and said, "Oh, she probably doesn't like that. She used to have cancer, so seeing the bald head makes her sad." I felt terrible, and I am cringing just typing this out. Story 23. Many years ago, I had to provide a urine sample at the doctor's office. The nurse led me into the desk area and told me to wait, so I placed my sample on the workstation while I searched for something in my bag. I accidentally knocked it over, spilling it everywhere, on paperwork, the pen holder, and files. I was trying to clean it up when a man in a suit rushed past me with a sample cup, narrowly avoiding a collision. The nurse came out about 30 seconds later and looked upset when she saw the mess. I blamed it on the man who had almost run into me. Story 24. I did a reading at my son's wedding. I was carrying a cell phone in the front pouch of a kilt I wore for the ceremony, as the couple wanted a Scottish theme. Of course, I didn't turn it off before standing up at the podium. My brother, who was running late, called me just as I started my reading. Fortunately for me, the podium had a gap in the front. Instead of the sound reaching my microphone, it traveled out to the pews. Everyone started reaching for their phones to check if they had shut them off. There were over 60 people there, and nobody was looking my way. I quickly slipped my hand into my pocket and turned off the phone while they were distracted. At the reception, people came up to me and apologized for allowing their phones to ring, saying they couldn't reach them in time to turn them off. Many people were upset, and there was a lot of discussion about who could have been so rude. Nobody suspected it was me, and it will stay that way. I'm not saying anything, not even on my deathbed. Story 25. When I was a psychiatry student during COVID, my mentor abused me by using me to do her work while claiming we would sit down to sign off my proficiencies. But she never found the time. She made me come in for shifts outside of my working hours, including one night at 3 a.m., and would leave me sitting in the hospital for hours before finally saying she didn't have time and I could go home. Due to an approaching deadline, I felt so stressed that I spoke to the ward sister and my student-linked nurse about the issue. They both confronted my mentor, but this made her resent me more, and she refused to sign anything. As a result, I forged signatures on proficiencies that I had been completing daily on the ward to a good standard. One of these signatures was questioned when my mentor had a change of heart on my last day, leading to a 6-month investigation. I denied everything and contemplated suicide due to the guilt. I was deemed not guilty and have been qualified for 4 years now. Story 26. I went to a Halloween party hosted by the girlfriend of one of my friends. I had to go out to my car to grab something. When I returned to the apartment, I forgot to take my shoes off. After a minute, I noticed a smell. I looked at my shoe and realized I had stepped in dog waste. In a blind panic, I went to the bathroom to try and clean my shoes. To make matters worse, I used the sink to clean them, the same sink she uses to wash her face and brush her teeth. I got my shoes cleaned and went back to the living room. Moments later, Laura, not her real name, raised her voice and loudly asked, "Who tracked dog waste in my house?" Everyone in the apartment went dead quiet as if a DJ had scratched a record. My face turned red, and I felt incredibly small. I sheepishly admitted it was me. Now everyone was looking at us. She then said, "You aren't supposed to wear shoes in the apartment." It only got worse when she discovered I used her sink to clean my shoes. Honestly, I can't remember anything after that. I try to blank this memory out. Thanks for the reminder. Story 27. I cashed out my entire structured settlement worth over $500,000 and used the money for gambling and cocaine. Story 28. There was a very nerdy guy who transferred into my school in 7th grade. He had a prickly attitude and we didn't get along well. I didn't bully him. We would just occasionally argue like typical school kids who simply didn't like each other. I honestly don't remember the reasons why, as I was generally a laid-back person and got along with most everyone. We later found out that his mother had recently passed away from cancer before he transferred, which explained why he could be difficult at times. On one class field trip, we were really bickering, and he made a nasty comment about me in front of a group of guys, which was very embarrassing. I responded by saying that I had seen his mother over the weekend in the movie Return of the Living Dead, which had just come out in 1986. He fell silent and walked away sniffling. The guys we were with told me that my comment was low, but I was so upset that I never apologized. I later heard that his father's second wife also died, and his father was hit by a car in our city's downtown and killed about 20 years ago. To this day, it's one of the worst things I've ever done, and it still makes me cringe to think about what his family endured. Story 29. I once said to a patient, "Is this your little brother?" It turned out that the skinny 13-year-old boy with a buzz cut was actually her 19-year-old girlfriend. These days, I sometimes console myself after informing people that their relatives have died in unfortunate circumstances with the thought, "Oh well, at least this wasn't as bad as that one time." Story 30. I forgot to remove the gun safety pin while launching an F-16 in Afghanistan. Fortunately, they did not use the gun on that mission, so only my colleague and I know. Story 31. At 16, I became pregnant by my first boyfriend. I wanted an abortion, but the county clinic claimed I was too far along because we could hear the heartbeat. I gave birth a week after my 17th birthday and placed the baby for adoption. Everything that happened during and after severely traumatized me, and I consider that the point when my life began to decline for a couple of decades due to drugs and alcohol and compounding traumas. Every time someone praises me for my actions, it feels like a gut punch, reminding me of everything I lost, but I never admit the truth. I don't regret what cannot be changed, but I wonder how different my life could have been. Story 32. At 9 years old, I used to bully another little girl during Sunday school at church. Not only did I get away with it, but what happened 3 years later made the situation worse. My mother was having an affair with her father, which led to the girl's parents' divorce. After finding out about that, I avoided that family out of shame. I tried to search for her to send an apology now that we are both adults. But she has changed her name and there's no good way of finding her that wouldn't seem like stalking. Sarah, if you read this, I was wrong to you and you didn't deserve it. I'm sorry. Story 33. Back in the 90s, I traded my foiled Zapdos for a foiled Blastoise. I was young and naive, unaware that the moment the trade was completed, the kid whipped out his card binder, flipped through the entire thing, and slipped my card into the only empty spot in the original 151 Pokemon. He completed the collection. Everyone erupted with applause and congratulated him while I stood there in disbelief. He didn't even mention anything to me about it. I got hustled hard, and I will regret this until the day I die. Story 34. I ruined a relationship with a wonderful girl in 2000 while trying to break into mixed martial arts. I trained intensely, which negatively affected my mental state, and I distanced myself from everyone. I ended up placing second in a major tournament, needing first place to advance, and I also tore my shoulder. My journey ended there, and I felt broken, defeated, and I lost the one person who cared about me the most. I still think about her to this day. Story 35. Not being with my grandmother on her deathbed is something that haunts me. The care team at the hospital made her comfortable, but she was not awake. I knew she would not have wanted to die alone. I lacked the strength to be with my favorite person in the world during her final moments. I will regret this forever. Story 36. I accidentally released gas in an elevator with a small child and her grandmother, and it ended up getting stuck. They were in there for an hour. Story 37. I was engaged to my wife, and we were staying at her great-aunt and uncle's house. I slept on the couch and ended up having an accident. I cleaned it as best I could in the middle of the night and never said a word. To this day, I'm not sure anyone knows, and I will probably keep it a secret even on my deathbed. Story 38. I started a dumpster fire. A literal dumpster fire where I almost burned down my apartment. Our apartment had a fireplace, and I had grabbed all the ashes into a plastic trash can after the fire went out. I went out to the dumpster and dumped them in. 15 minutes later, there were about 4 fire trucks outside, and flames were flying 15 feet in the air. The flames were also catching part of the carport next to it on fire. I thought, wow, who's the dumbass that did that? Then I looked at my plastic garbage can and saw a 1-inch hole where an ember had burned through it, and I realized I was that dumbass. They ended up having to replace the carport. This was around 1993, long before security cameras became common, thank God. What a dumbass I was. The funny thing is that my wife, when she got home, immediately guessed I had done something stupid. She didn't tell anyone but knew right away. Story 39. I accidentally sent a brutally honest email about my boss to my boss. I got fired and learned to triple-check recipients. Story 40. When I was 21, I was showering after spending the night with a guy. I used the bathroom before getting in the shower and forgot to flush. We continued dating after that, and he never mentioned it, so I am not sure if it was a serious mistake, but I felt very upset about it. Story 41. I clogged the toilet with toilet paper at my new job at a school 2 weeks in. I left the mess there because I didn't know what to do. Later, a coworker complained to me about a little girl who had clogged the toilet and kept denying it to avoid trouble when she was reprimanded. The little girl wasn't lying. It was me. I felt sorry but didn't correct my coworker. Story 42. I am speaking for my uncle on this. He clogged my parents' toilet. We had to take the whole toilet apart, and my dad had to go into the pipe beneath to unclog it. Story 43. I was working a security job at a manufacturing plant during the night shift, watching a movie on my laptop when the internet started acting up. My coworker had access to the server room, where the Wi-Fi router was located, but I did not. She often left her badge on her desk overnight, so I used her badge to enter the server room and reboot the router. This fixed the Wi-Fi, and I continued watching my movie. A couple of days later, that coworker was fired. They stated that she accessed the server room and disconnected the server that was crucial for their entire operation. The manufacturing process shut down, which was a significant issue since it relied on specific timing. Shipments couldn't leave, delaying production by approximately 24 hours because the batches were ruined, and they had to start from scratch. This cost the company around $100,000. I thought, oh no. Now I'll explain why I believe I wasn't the cause of her dismissal. It wasn't a complex network setup. They had one managed switch connecting the server and the Wi-Fi router for that building, which included the security desk and a few manager offices. Unplugging the cable from the switch to the Wi-Fi router would not have affected the wider site network. However, unplugging the cable from the switch to the server, which was right next to it, would have disconnected the server from the network and may not have automatically reconnected once plugged back in. If I had caused the issue, the discussion would likely have gone like this. Manager: why did you disconnect the server yesterday? Her: I didn't. Manager: your badge was used to enter the server room. Her: when? Manager: at 10 p.m. Her: I wasn't working then and left my badge here. They would have traced this back to me, as I was the only one working at that time. That conversation did not take place, so presumably, the network failure did not occur during my shift. The router problem was well known, and rebooting the router was a common solution among the security guards. She was not very tech-savvy and might have accidentally pulled the wrong cord. Additionally, she was known to be quite unreliable, having previously been suspended twice, once for becoming excessively drunk at the company Christmas party and causing a scene. If she was responsible for the disconnection, this would have been her third strike, and I do not feel bad for her. Story 44. I struggled with eating my lunch at school and was hardly ever hungry. A few times I threw my lunch away when I got home, and on some occasions I got caught and reprimanded by my parents. Being the foolish child I was, I thought the perfect solution was to not eat my lunch but also not throw it away. As you can imagine, this resulted in my lunch being left in my bag, usually going moldy, until I could find an opportunity to dispose of it without the risk of getting caught. I finally snapped out of that phase after an incident at school when someone stole a key from one of the keyboards. As a result, they decided to search the bags of our entire class and instructed us to empty our bags onto the desks. I was fortunate that they didn't actually look inside my bag and trusted me enough to accept the items I had laid out on the table. I fully appreciated how narrowly I had avoided an awful situation. Story 45. When I was in college, I was in a restroom stall at the library when someone was next to me. I had eaten 3 burritos the night before, and after I finished, the handle wasn't working properly, so I pushed it down multiple times. I think I used too much toilet paper as well. Within seconds, the toilet overflowed with water. I started to panic, and the person next to me said, "Is this real?" I left the stall and saw his legs trying to stand up, but he fell into the water. I ended up putting that toilet out of service for a week. I'm sorry, man. You probably tell that story at a bar whenever you can. Story 46. I was at a convention after party. I saw a girl who looked cute, so I made my way over to her and tried a conversation starter. The music was so loud she couldn't hear me. I repeated myself, but she still couldn't hear me, so I leaned over to shout into her ear. Unfortunately, I accidentally spit in her face. Somehow, 3 droplets of saliva flew off my lips, made an impossible turn in midair, and hit her right between the eyes. I froze, realizing what I had done. I turned away and saw about 4 other people, presumably her friends, staring at me with their mouths agape and their eyes bulging with horror. I turned and ran all the way back to my hotel room and spent the rest of the evening watching Star Trek reruns. Why is there seemingly always a channel at every hotel that shows nonstop Star Trek? Story 47. My former best friend was spreading rumors about me out of jealousy, so I sent her a partially nude picture to her brother. I will regret it for the rest of my life. Story 48. I wasn't at the veterinarian during my cat's last moments on Earth, when she was being euthanized due to lung cancer and heart failure. That was 10 years ago, and it deeply haunts me to this day. I wasn't doing anything important. I was just avoiding reality. Story 49. I was a bit of a troublemaker as a child, and one of my elementary school rivals and best friends got a puppy. I was extremely jealous, so I told everyone that my dog was going to have puppies. I maintained the ruse for weeks. Finally, my friend was scheduled to come over to my house, and I knew I was in trouble. I came up with a dark idea. All the puppies had died. We had a massive, unkempt backyard, so I made a pile of rocks and placed sticks in the shape of a cross. When she arrived, she asked my mom about it. My mom said there were no puppies. I told my friend that my mom was just too devastated to talk about it. I showed her the grave. My dog, who had been spayed the whole time, was standing in the yard with us, solemnly looking at the pile of rocks. She thought we were out there to play fetch and stood next to me, which made my friend believe even more that my dog was mourning her puppies. That was the end of it, and I never confessed or admitted the truth to anyone. Story 50. Rich, you went to Berkeley. You deserved so much better. I was cruel and careless with you. I hope your life turned out beautiful, gentle, and passionate. I hope your tattoo looks just as nice. I hope you found someone who treasures you because you absolutely deserve it. You are a gem. I got what I deserved, but I'm getting better now. Story 51. I won't wait until my deathbed, but this is still a massive and recent mistake. I hung out with a guy from my boyfriend's parents' church years ago. Somehow the conversation turned to sexuality. I told him I am bisexual and he told me he is too. We chatted for a bit, and I thought nothing of it afterward. Years later, I was chatting with my boyfriend and his mother about that guy. I said, "Oh, he's the bisexual guy, right?" To which his mother was shocked. I stumbled and said, "Oh no, I thought he was out. Maybe he only felt comfortable telling me because I'm also bisexual. Please keep that quiet and don't tell the church group." I was quite drunk. I should have definitely covered for him better. Turns out, after 10 years of being in a relationship with my boyfriend and not at all hiding or being ashamed of my sexuality, I'd actually never mentioned it to his parents. Many questions followed. She thought I meant I was polyamorous, asked if that's why we weren't married, and asked if I'd switch and want to leave my boyfriend for a woman. I abruptly went up to bed, and we didn't speak about it in the morning. It's been about a year now. We've never spoken about it again. Story 52. I didn't recognize my good friend when I met her accidentally. She had cancer, and it was the first time I saw her wearing a wig. Story 53. When I was about 11, I played with a girl who lived near me. She was so cool and slightly older than I was. One day, the other kids on the street started to call her names, and I eventually joined in. "Natalie, I am sorry. I do not really know what I was thinking. I hope you are doing well." Story 54. My grandpa worked in an ammunition plant and taught me how to make my own bullets as a child. I used the same backpack for school, and the bullet I was proud of fell out during class. I pretended nothing happened, but the school went on lockdown, and dogs searched everyone's lockers. It was a frightening experience, and I still feel bad about it. Story 55. I deeply regret becoming involved in an 11-year relationship with a narcissist that caused harm to me, and especially to my son. Story 56. I once had two girls who wanted to date me. I didn't want to go out with both of them at the same time because it would have felt wrong, so I had to choose between them. The one I chose friend-zoned me, and the other got a boyfriend immediately after. Essentially, I ended up with the worst possible outcome, which still bothers me to this day. Story 57. I thought it would be funny if I burned my homework in frustration before summer vacation. What wasn't funny was that, by doing so, I ended up burning down a large portion of a Heron estuary. This happened because I chose to burn my homework on a wooden bridge next to the estuary. Story 58. When I was 8, my fish tank was dirty. I thought hand sanitizer would clean it. Needless to say, the fish weren't doing well after, and my dad was very confused as to why they all died suddenly. To this day, I haven't told a soul. Story 59. I created a significant, irreversible lie that everyone close to me now knows. It forms the foundation of my relationships with everyone. Every time they try to understand me better, they start with that lie and work from there. As a result, no one will ever truly know me in any substantial way. Story 60. I took my friend's sister's car, got high with her brother, and crashed into a parked car. I returned the car, and the police conducted an investigation but never found out it was me. Story 61. I broke a $50,000 tool at work and acted surprised when my boss found it broken. It was my first month working as a petroleum engineer. Story 62. When I was a child, I used blue cake frosting to draw a mustache on an oil painting of my aunt that cost thousands of dollars. Since my cousin and his friends were present, she blamed them instead of me. Story 63. I used Google Maps for directions. I had to go to take an exam and ended up 80 kilometers away from the original location, which didn't have an S at the end. Now I am writing this comment after getting scolded by my dad. Story 64. In college, there was a person who always tried to annoy me. I wasn't a victim of bullying by any means, but he exhibited some bully-like behavior, though it wasn't too serious. One time, he threw food at me from across the dining hall. I got up and chased him around a table, feeling very angry, and I tripped him with my foot. He fell and had to go to the hospital to stay for several days with a serious concussion and a badly injured face. The police were involved. I told the staff and police that he fell, and I think he believes he fell, but I injured him pretty badly. Story 65. I took $20 from my stepdad's wallet in Mississippi because I had no money for lunch. I never told him, but a few years later, while traveling to see family, I had a job at this point and a good chunk of change saved up. I paid for his, my mom's, and my niece's dinner at an airport halfway through the trip. They both had stepped away to use the bathroom, and I secretly paid the bill, asking the server to just say, "It's on the house." He went along with it, and my family thought we were just super lucky. I tipped the server nicely. Story 66. I was the one who pushed the chair before he sat on it during lunch. In fairness, he was my childhood bully who threw slime in my face one day, so he had it coming. I felt bad, though. He bruised his backside, and for 3 days, he embarrassingly had to attach an ice pack to it every day. Story 67. I drank hot chocolate and went ice skating, but my stomach was really upset, and unfortunately, I threw up on the side rail. Somehow, nobody saw me as I looked around, unless they were just hiding it, but I left either way. I went to sit on the bleachers, and a few minutes later, some kid yelled because his hand slid across the railing where I had thrown up. Story 68. I was running down the hall in a dorm across the street from mine during my freshman year in the middle of the night. I ran into the water fountain and knocked it off the wall. I panicked and left. Everyone in that dorm was charged a fee at the end of the year to cover the flood damage. Nobody ever found out it was me. Story 69. I used to work at a golf course. The break room was located in the basement of the main clubhouse building. The job was a regular 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. On Friday, I clogged the break room toilet. It was the kind of clog that can happen with minimal paper. And that's what occurred. The toilet was completely blocked, and that's how I left it, blocked and unusable. By the time Monday arrived, no one had discovered the issue in the basement. It smelled terrible. In short, I and the other employees spent the entire afternoon unclogging the toilet. My eyes stung from the cleaning chemicals. My 3-day-old mess held on stubbornly. We eventually succeeded, but at what cost? No one ever found out who clogged the toilet. The mystery, like the lingering odor, still remains today. Story 70. I was walking home after a house party, feeling nice and drunk, when I noticed another house party. I rolled in as if I knew the people there and said, "Hey, thanks for inviting me." I grabbed a beer from the box and went to the restroom. While there, I accidentally dropped my beer bottle, and it broke the side of the toilet bowl. Realizing the situation I had created, I calmly flushed the toilet, acknowledged my mistake, and left, never to return. Story 71. I was helping a friend plan a big surprise birthday event for his girlfriend. I accidentally texted her instead of him. I didn't realize it until after she showed up, hugged me, and thanked me for ruining the one fun surprise she didn't see coming. I just stood there like an idiot with a party horn in my mouth. I doubled down and tried to pretend it was a decoy text to throw her off. It was a total panic lie, and that didn't work. That moment will haunt me forever. Story 72. I stopped global payments processing for a few hours and then fixed it. I was recognized for my efforts and won an award, which included a very expensive high-performance trip, like a luxury 2-week paid vacation. No one realized I was also responsible for the issue. Story 73. When I was 10, a boy thought it was funny to harass me and my friends on the playground. Every day he followed us around, called us names, blocked the slide, and was generally obnoxious. One day I had enough, so I grabbed the boy's arms while my friend grabbed his legs. We counted to 3 and then threw him about 6 feet through the air into a metal tetherball pole. It broke his arm and collarbone. One of the playground monitors pointed at me angrily while trying to comfort the boy, who was screaming, and demanded to know my name. I gave her the name of a girl in my class who had nothing to do with it, but I really didn't like her. Story 74. I put honey in a person's cart and he got pneumonia when I was 16. I don't feel bad for taking advantage of him, but I feel bad for making his mother go into medical debt to pay for his situation. However, he raped my friend when she was 15 and he was 22, so I have no sympathy for him. Story 75. My mistakes are always spectacular, so everyone is familiar with them. No confession needed. I could always make one up to surprise everyone, like claiming that Britney Spears' children are actually mine. Story 76. I was running around my uncle's farm with my sister when I was young. There was a coop nearby with all the chickens wandering freely. I accidentally tripped over a chicken, and it started twitching and couldn't get up on its own. Someone asked what happened to the chicken, and I was so terrified that I blamed it on the farm dog. My uncle walked over and snapped the chicken's neck, and that was it. Story 77. One time, when I was about 12, I attended a co-ed sleepover at a girl's grandparents' house. As nighttime approached, I started feeling really nervous and nauseous. At one point, I realized I was going to throw up but wouldn't make it to the bathroom in time. My best friend noticed that I looked unwell and turned off the lights. I ended up throwing up on the floor, but it was mostly liquid since I hadn't eaten all day due to nerves. We heard a scream, and when my best friend turned the lights back on, one of the girls had slipped in the vomit. We pretended it was a spilled drink. Eventually, I called my mom to pick me up, feeling very embarrassed. Story 78. When I was 19, I had a girlfriend who felt like a soulmate. She possessed everything I wanted and needed in a partner, but I acted foolishly. I recognized that I wanted to emulate my ideal future, but I still treated her poorly. I am glad she had the courage to leave me for someone better. I hope she is doing well in her life, and it is something I regret to this day. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.